Hello, my name is Mike Nieto. I'm the Illinois Prep coordinator for the Times of Northwest Indiana, and to my left is the head football coach at Mount Carmel High School, Mr. Frank Lenti. And Coach Frank, a few latecomers here committing, and you've got quite a bumper crop of kids playing at various levels.
Yeah, really this year, Mike, we have an exceptional group. Division 1, 2, and 3. As of this moment, we have 14 kids that are going to be committed to colleges and universities tomorrow, and we're really not done yet. Before we're done, there'll be another handful of youngsters who will also commit to other Division 3 schools as well.
When the schools come out to look at these kids, they look at tape and all that, and they look at their stats. What's the one number that they look at with these kids? The first thing they ask you?
Their academics.
ACT,
what's their GPA based on a 4-point scale. You know, for example, Steve Dumasich, who just committed to Illinois, he's a 4.40 on a 4-point scale. Sam Conley just committed to Miami of Ohio. He's a 4.0 on a 4-point scale. And that's pretty prevalent in our program. I think you remember last year the number 1, number 2, and number 3 guys in the senior class academically were all football players.
And to throw another stereotype out, year after year, in the top 3 or 4 kids of the senior class is a lineman. Scanlon, you had the Scanlon kid.
Yes.
Kosowitz.
Kevin Kosowitz a couple of years ago was number 1 in his class, and he's at Washington University down in St. Louis. So it is pretty common for us. Mount Carmel is not the quote-unquote dumb jock school that a lot of people would like to make us out to be.
When you talk about the different levels, people look at the kids that are going D1, and I think they realize, and you just mentioned here, you have kids playing at all levels. You get, the Mount Carmel kid can play. Maybe he's not a Big Ten player, but he can play in the MAC. He can play, Division II. He could play. You got a kid, Bobby Brophy, just committed to Loris, can play in the CCIW at a Millikan or an Augustana. For you, what it entails of getting them into the kids that are maybe not as well known, getting them into schools and working with college coaches?
Those are the guys you really have to work with and work for, and that process really starts with us in our off-season program, which Coach Joe Kubek helps run, and then Joe also helps me with the marketing and recruiting of some of our football players. We work out 3 days a week at 6 a.m. in the morning, and that's just getting ready to start up now in early February. And when we get to the spring, the college coaches will be at Mount Carmel at 6 a.m. in the morning, either a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, and they'll get a chance to see our kids run around, see what they can do speed-wise, agility-wise, what kind of weight room ethic they have. And that gives them kind of a tip to look at our kids on the hoof, as they say, and see if they look like they're going to fit the profile for some of those schools. And then that work just continues for the kids throughout the summer when we get together for our 12 dates in July. And then they get ready to go in August. And because of the success of our program, we get a lot of great coverage by folks like yourself and others, and people get to read about the kids from Mount Carmel, and they go on our huddle program. And if they're looking for an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman or any other position, they know where to go to find them. The nice thing is, if you play at Mount Carmel High School, you're not going to get missed, Mike.
No, you're not. And another thing, too, these kids are getting, scholarships. The Division III schools give grant-in aids. They're not scholarships per se. Some of these kids are going to private colleges, and they're paying less to go to a college than they paid to go to Mount Carmel, which is close to $10,000 a year, I would imagine.
Exactly. We just talked about that a few minutes ago. We have a number of our student athletes, because of their grades, because of their academic background, and their football background. We'll have, for example, Kyle Thomas is going to go to St. Joe's in Rensselaer, and based on what they've told me, he'll pay less to go to St. Joe's in Rensselaer than he paid to go to Mount Carmel High School. And that's pretty typical of our student athletes who do a good job academically as well as athletically.
And I think that starts with you. When I always talk with the kids, they say you get on them sometimes and you find out the kids maybe slipping an English class. They said first thing you catch them after school is you get on them about that, don't you?
Oh, without a doubt. And you've known for a long time that that's kind of how we are, how I am. The number one reason you go to school is to get an education, not to be a great football, baseball, or basketball player. And we try and make sure they understand. You know, you're one play away from never playing sports again, yet your education has to last you a lifetime. So you better make sure you take care of your academics, because I don't want anybody to graduate and say, gee, I got to play in 2 state championship teams, but I can't get into college. You know, that's kind of backwards.
Let's talk a little bit about, bringing the kid along, from a freshman year, and that you've had kids in the past that maybe started as a running back or a receiver. You've moved them to linebacker, and some of them didn't want to make that move, and then they end up getting a scholarship for the position you wanted them to move them for because they finally came through. How does that go about with that?
Well, probably the most famous of those guys would have been Simeon Rice, who came to Mount Carmel as a running back and kind of fought with me for a couple of years about playing in the defensive line. And I just convinced him that if he did what we asked him to do, he'd be able to go to college for free. And finally, at the end of his junior year, he became convinced, because he was tired of sitting on the bench, that this would be the best thing for him to do. And Simi went on and started as a true freshman at the University of Illinois, was one of the stars of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl team, and today he's a very successful entrepreneur. You know, this year Kyle Thomas was a defensive lineman as a freshman and a sophomore, and we moved him along. You know, the Greer boys have all played offense and defense, and eventually we convinced them, the thing that was best for them is to do both, so that they could get an opportunity to be seen and scouted by colleges and universities, make themselves more valuable. You know, Sam Conley did that this year.
Played both ways,
right,
tight end.
Played both ways for us in the playoffs, and that's one of the things that Miami of Ohio liked about Sam, was his versatility.
How frustrating is it? You had 2 quarterbacks now who were told they could play quarterback at the Division I level, and they sort of proved it otherwise, didn't they?
Yeah, from which you speak, obviously the most famous of those is Donovan McNabb, who was told that he would not be a quarterback at the Division I level. He should just go and play another position. And, I was able to convince some folks that Donovan could, in fact, play quarterback, and the rest is history. Great player at Syracuse, Heisman Trophy finalist, many years in the NFL. Of course, now we're just wrapping up with Jordan Lynch. Same thing. Coach Kill was at Northern Illinois at the time. Very good friend of mine. I convinced Jerry to take a fly on this guy, and now Jordan Lynch ends up number 3 in the voting for the Heisman Trophy. Hopefully he'll be drafted. I'm sure some team is going to be smart enough to take a flyer on Jordan Lynch as well. I don't know if he'll be a quarterback or a defensive back, but I do know one thing. He's going to be a success, and he's going to find a spot for himself at the next level, and he's going to make somebody very happy with that opportunity.
On the other side, maybe you have a kid who he has an offer from a Division II or an FCS school, and coach, it's not good enough for me, and then he finds out I need to play on national TV every weekend, and he's just not there. How do you convince him? Or sometimes he has to come back to you and say, Coach, can you help me?
Well, you try and do your best with those kids, and unfortunately we've had one of those this year. He turned down a few scholarship offers because he went to these EFT training things or Core 6 training things, and they convinced these kids and their parents to spend this money with these programs, and then all that they're going to do for you. In reality, they can't do anything for you, because you're a Division I football player when a Division I university offers you a Division I scholarship. Not because they tell you so, or not because I say so. You have to make sure people understand what they're getting into. And unfortunately, as I said, Mike, we have a youngster right now who's sitting at home, and I don't think he has very much going on, because he and his dad thought they knew better than we did. And sometimes people have to learn those lessons the hard way. The unfortunate thing is, ultimately it'll be my fault or somebody else's fault. And as we tell them, we can't make you 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". That's just something that's between your parents, genetics, and God. And everybody has that dream, but it doesn't make any difference. If you are the best quarterback since sliced bread, and you want to go to University of Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's not recruiting quarterbacks, you're not going to be going there that year. That's just the way the game is played, and that's the nature of the business at that level.